What is going on, everybody? Hey, this is your boy JC from JC Sports Talk, and I had to bring on my friend once again because too much has gone on the Eagles, around the Eagles, to the Eagles that I couldn't talk about it enough myself. So, welcome back to another stream with my friend Chris. Hey, how you doing, Chris?
JC, it's funny because obviously we'll get into the big news from today. We
Yeah.
already had this scheduled. I should say, I'm sorry, I know you're going to premiere this on a Thursday, so but nonetheless, we already had this pre-planned out. So we were going to talk ball regardless. But I wonder. I'm looking at the graphic in your background and the facial expression. Is that what you had when the Eagles announced they agreed to terms with Bradberry on the 1-year deal on
Oh,
Wednesday?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like I couldn't believe how he pulled it off. So I'm hoping that you have a better insight, like how long this been in the works, like what happened. I mean, could you believe that the Philadelphia Eagles signed James Bradberry to a 1-year deal? I hear it's up to 10 million, but it's about a 7.5 with 2.5 million incentive. So I don't know like the full term of it, but either way. I mean, 1-year deal to pair along with big play slate. What is going through your mind right now?
It's funny because on Tuesday, I got to give a shout out to Robert Mays at The Athletic. I was listening to his mailbag podcast with Benjamin Solak. Does a great job covering the Eagles, does great all 22 breakdowns. Now he's over at The Ringer. And they brought up, some of the guys who are still in the market, and they mentioned Bradberry. And Robert goes, yeah, I was texting or talking to a NFL GM and Bradberry to the Eagles. It was just like a foregone conclusion. So right then I said, oh, something's got to be in the works. Because it's like you've been hearing the rumblings. It's like been too perfect a fit. You look at this Eagles roster and you said, what's the one area that they could still address in a significant fashion? And that's the starting spot opposite of big play Slay. So obviously you have a guy who played in the division, who played at a Pro Bowl level just 2 years ago, who's still in the prime of his career, a fit for the system. Just it all made too much sense. And of course, the chance to go against the team that just cut you, of
Yeah.
all times, to cut you after free agency, after the draft, at the last possible minute. Howie Roseman has stressed that this team doesn't just look at the building period as free agency or just the draft. And you go back to the Super Bowl year when they added Chris Long and Tim Jernigan, and added LeGarrette Blount. And you can even go back to last year when Steven Nelson was signed on the eve of training camp. I mean, you go back to the year where they acquired Ronald Darby during training camp in a trade. It's how he's always going to say, all right, what are the options? What's available on the market? And we'll let the moves come to us. I know a lot of fans were clamoring for some other moves like Tyrann Mathieu, let's say, for example.
Yeah.
And, there was a reported virtual visit. And, at that point, I think the Eagles were doing their due diligence, saying to themselves, we'll see what the draft brings. Okay. If the draft had brought along a first-round pick at cornerback, a second-round pick at cornerback, then James Bradberry is not in the equation anymore. But the Eagles looked at the roster after the draft and said, okay, what are the areas we could still address? Okay, this is a team coming off a playoff appearance, coming into Nick Sirianni's second year. You have acquired A.J. Brown to be your Pro Bowl receiver, to complement Devontae Smith and to give Jalen Hurts another weapon on offense. You look at the offense and where it's at. You look at all the additions on defense. You're like, this team is primed to compete right now. What can we do?
Yeah.
Let's add in a Pro Bowl corner in James Bradberry to shore up that other spot. And now you have 3 top-level starters, because I'm including Avonte Maddox in the slot.
Yep.
3 top-shelf corners starting for you on that side of the ball. And Zach McPherson, who was in line to be your starter before this move was made. Look, he was your leader in special team snaps a year ago, a phenomenal player in the third phase, and he still gets to continue and grow because I'm sure – nicks and bruises, stuff will come during the season. You're going to need him at times. And there's these other young corners who the Eagles still want to get looks at. Your Mac McCains, your Tay Gowans, Kerry Vincent. These guys that, Mario Goodrich, who they added in the post-draft signing period. These guys are all going to compete because the Eagles know that long-term, they need to build out the position. They need to find answers at the position. But for 2022 and where this team stands, Jonathan Gannon has to be very
It's
happy with all the toys at his disposal
yes.
going at every level of the defense, JC.
So before we get into Jonathan Gannon, so do you think is our defense right now in your eyes? Are we set, or because I know people even today, after the Bradberry signing, people were saying all we need now is a safety. All we need now is safety. So to me, I feel like we're good, but I just want to hear your opinion. Are we set on defense as of right now?
Always looking. They're always going to be looking, but certainly Marcus Epps is getting
Yes.
every chance to win the starting spot. Basically, you go back to the end of last season, Marcus Epps was already
Yep.
working his way into the starting lineup. Basically, it
Absolutely.
was a three-man rotation, and more often than not, Marcus Epps was getting the snaps in the starting lineup. So the Eagles are very comfortable with Marcus Epps. They like how he's developed in the last 2 years in the program, and they're excited what he has to offer. He's going to be out there to compete with Anthony Harris, who's back on the 1-year deal. So
Yeah.
I think the Eagles, again, Howie's always going to be looking. Howie's always going to be rustling leaves and seeing what he can shake down from trees and what he can get on the market. But I really think, though, at this point, we're looking at Marcus Epps is going to get every chance to compete alongside of Anthony Harris. Don't forget Kayvon Wallace in there. But I think
Yeah.
going into these OTAs, I'm looking at Marcus Epps to be your starter opposite of Anthony Harris, and we'll see how things play out in the next few months. Again, I go back to the Ronald Darby example. They may get to camp and say, "Hey, we need to make an upgrade. Let's see what's on the open market. Let's see who might be getting cut. Let's see if there's a trade possibility." There's plenty of ammo to make moves. So always building. Howie's always going to be looking. He's going to keep on looking here. So we'll see what's to come there. But right now, I think Epps is your guy.
Okay. So that's perfect. So now with all these pieces on defense, all right, we're gonna talk about the draft. But Jonathan Gannon, do you feel like that he is set up for success this year better than last year's? So we should not have no issues running a press defense like Slay loved doing and Bradberry he loved doing. So how do you envision his system playing out?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the interesting thing is you're going to, I think, see a lot more odd fronts up front. Okay. You look at Jordan Davis, who, hey, he looks like he could be a monster for you in those early rundowns, first and second
Yes.
down, to get you to those passing situations where you have Josh Sweat and obviously BG coming back. And of course, you've got now Hassan Reddick flying off the edge. I mean, there's going to be a multitude of options there for Gannon at his disposal. I think they're obviously much deeper up front on defense. You look at the middle tier, the middle level of the defense, adding a Kaiser White, TJ Edwards has made big strides. And of course, we've talked about what we've seen from Hassan Reddick in the last couple of seasons. What's great about Hassan is he's thrived in multiple systems. This isn't a one-year guy. This isn't a guy who flashed in the pan. He had a great season 1 year, and he's going to get his contract off of that. No, he had a great final year in Arizona. He went to Carolina, did it again. So 5th in sacks over the last 2 seasons. This is a proven playmaker who is coming home. And of course, when you know that this is going to be your top target in free agency, you're going to have the plan for him. You're going to have a way that you want to utilize and get the most out of him. So certainly I cannot wait to see how Hassan Reddick fits into this defense. And now Jonathan Gannon has to certainly be giddy with the addition of Bradberry. Again, you just get another top line starter there. So the whole, press off coverage, a lot of times that's dictated by the corners themselves. Okay. It depends on how comfortable they feel. They, how much they want to play. Sometimes the scheme dictates it. Sometimes it's, hey, if Slay feels comfortable being a few yards off, that's going to be his call. There'll be some flexibility there, but certainly I think I don't think there's any question that he has more tools at his disposal. When you go back and look at what this defense was when the season ended in Tampa Bay, and you look at it now, it's vastly improved. And it's not a situation where going into that playoff game against the Bucs, you felt like everything almost had to go perfectly for them to have a chance to win. No, that's not the case now. You got depth all across the board. That depth, I'm sure, will get tested throughout the course of the year. But again, I haven't even mentioned Fletcher Cox coming back, Javon Hargrave in there.
Yeah.
Again, Josh Sweat's now a Pro Bowler. Derek Barnett is going to be looking to prove himself.
Yes.
I've heard great things about Kyron Johnson, the 6th-round pick out of Kansas, just the electricity that he brings off the edge. It's going to be a really feisty training camp because there's going to be some good players. You start looking at that bottom of the roster and you're like, there's guys here who will play in the league. They may not be playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think fans are certainly going to be excited. And again, you've added top tier talent at all 3 levels of the defense here with Jordan up front. And I haven't even mentioned Nakobe Dean coming in, bolstering that linebacker core. So,
Yeah.
getting a first round talent there in the 3rd round. So, and someone who's come in and his football IQ is just off the charts. I had one assistant coach tell me that, with guys like Davis and Dean, you're going right into graduate level football courses, basically, in terms of telling the defense. You're not doing the 101 explain the defense. You're not doing the stuff that you had to do day 1 installs last year because you were teaching everyone the scheme. That Georgia defense is so complex with Kirby Smart. These guys are coming in already, having vast understanding of multiple schemes, how to operate them, and they're primed and ready to go. So it's been a fresh change of pace, I think, so to speak, having those guys into the building. Just outstanding players, outstanding character, and phenomenal football IQ to readily get themselves immersed in this defense.
Can you see this defense being a top 5 defense with the talent that we acquired through the draft, through the offseason?
I mean, the main thing is, do they win the games? That's really
Yeah.
at the end of the day what it comes down to. The biggest thing, I think Howie Roseman said it back in the draft. He said it back at the combine, was the pass rush had to improve.
Yes.
Okay, and that's something that, look, when you build the team out through the lines, you figure pass rush should not be an issue for you. Well, pass rush was an issue for this team in terms of production last season. So again, you've got Hassan Reddick, you've got the Kyron Johnson, you've got a Jordan Davis who's going to be the space eater to, take up those snaps on 1st and 2nd down to allow Hargrave and Cox to get after the quarterback. You got BG coming back, and he's fired up and ready to go in his 13th season, the longest tenured athlete in professional sports in Philadelphia. So I certainly think that's the biggest thing, is you just look at, what they were able to accomplish last year with the talent they had, tied for, I think they had 10 games where they gave up 18 or fewer points, tied for most in the league. Now you're going to look at the schedule and you're going to see some top tier quarterbacks. How will the Eagles respond going against those top tier quarterbacks? Will they be able to get the pressure and get those guys off their game, which is something that they weren't able to do at times last season, as we look back to the way the season ended in Tampa Bay when you were playing the Tom Brady's, the Derek Carrs, the Justin Herberts, the Patrick Mahomes. When you saw those top tier quarterbacks, they were able to dink and dunk their way and didn't have a problem with the Eagles defense. Now, Jonathan Gannon has more tools at his disposal, and he has the players who have the year in the system that he can build upon, so that you'll see some more nuanced techniques within the defense to offer some different looks and different challenges to opposing offenses. So I think, JC, it's a great question, just how good it can be. Obviously, the piece right there that this can be a very good defense. Again, Bradberry shores up, one of the biggest areas that this team need to address, just from an experience standpoint, more than anything else.
Pro Bowl too.
That's what I mean. It's a Pro Bowl caliber player, former 2nd-round pick, high pedigree, very productive, coming off, I think, 4 interceptions this past season. He's been around the ball, each and every season. Especially 2 years ago was phenomenal for the Giants. Proved to be a huge splash in free agency for them. And, coming off a season where a lot of things weren't going right for the Giants, but even the Giants in their press conferences were saying, this is a guy who's a starting quarterback in the league, and we know we're going to let him get on the market. And not only does he get on the market, he ends up to your division rival about an hour and a half south of northern New Jersey there. So, but it's great, great question about how good the defense can be. But I think the sky's the limit in terms of the potential here, because you have added talent at every level of the defense.
Okay. So the draft came and went. What was your biggest surprise in the draft?
I mean, Dean being there in the third round, easily to me. Um, the first round, it's funny because you're doing the exercise of like, if you have to pick a guy, I had a friend who was like, "Are you preparing stories for like all the different options they could pick in the first round?" And I said, "No, it's futile." But you start doing some prep work, and Jordan Davis was the first guy who came to mind for me. If I'm going to prepare a guy to do, it's like Jordan Davis, just because you look at the philosophy of the Eagles, you looked at the talent that he was the most freakishly athletic defensive lineman ever to participate in the NFL Combine. This is a guy who is 6'6", 340, 350,
Yeah.
and was moving faster than running backs, some wide receiver, just the agility he had. He looked phenomenal in the drills at the combine, just the complete package. The only question was the production in terms of the sack numbers. That's literally the only thing that kept him from being probably the number 1 overall pick or number 2 overall pick. But everything else from, the age, the size, the athleticism, the character, being a winner in college, he checked off every single box, and just a phenomenal kid who loves the game. And I had someone tell me this story down from the pro day. It was someone from the Eagles staff went down there. They're watching the Georgia prospects because obviously there was like 30 of them in the draft.
Yes.
But the person was watching Jordan Davis specifically to see how he engaged with his teammates, because that's one of the things you want to see is, is this a guy who his teammates like cheering for? Is he really one of the guys? Is he one of the leaders? Or is he a guy who has all the success, but he scores a touchdown, but no one's there to shake his hand or celebrate with him, and this person told me that not only was everyone stoked for what Jordan was able to do out there, but Jordan was right there cheering for everyone else because he wanted all of his teammates to succeed. It was like one of those like last boxes. Like if you're just looking for those little tiebreakers, just to push him over the edge, like that's what they were doing for him right there. So, the biggest thing is his floor is so high because at the very worst, he's going to be an outstanding run defender. He's going to be a phenomenal run defender for this football team. And the way he was utilized in Georgia, there's a lot of similarities to the way he could be used here in Philadelphia, but he has some great coaches, Tracy Rocker in that defensive line room, the defensive line coach to be able to work with him, who's worked with some talented first-round prospects in the college game out of the SEC, had a tremendous college coaching career before coming to Philadelphia. He gets to learn from 2 of the best in the game right now in Fletcher and Javon. I know the original question was like the biggest surprise. So obviously, I think the Eagles want to make sure they got what they felt was one of the elite players there in Jordan Davis. But then the Kobe Dean, you were kind of wondering, okay, the size, maybe an off-ball linebacker. It's like if he doesn't have the value with the off-ball linebacker, it's not that it's not valued, but when you need to have the guys who have the pass rush ability on top of it. Okay, if he's just an off-ball linebacker, that might, that might slide him a few spots there in terms of the pecking order and positional value. Now, there was some question about the medical. Some teams had flagged him. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he played every game in college. He was like the best guy. He was the best guy on the field for one of the greatest defenses in college football history. Everything, characters off the charts. 3.55 GPA in mechanical engineering. It's like, again, just checked every box, but some teams had concern and just hanging in the third round, and Howie was just sitting there like, just make sure, just get to us, just get to us. So obviously, so that to me, biggest surprise of the draft, just Nakobe Dean being there when Eagles fans would have been happy if he was the second round pick. They could have been happy if he was the first round pick. If the Eagles trade out to get Nakobe Dean, Eagles fans, it's a linebacker in the first round, But nonetheless, though, I certainly think Nakobe Dean being there in the third round, and again, just the football intelligence, hearing the coaches talk about him is just absolutely sensational, and will allow him to get a fast start here as he starts his football NFL career in Philadelphia.
We've been dying for a number one wide receiver. With the 18th pick, Howie did magic. I mean, did you ever imagine the Philadelphia Eagles landing AJ Brown on draft night or any big wide receiver, or instead of us drafting a wide receiver, the way
You
things
know,
were shaking up?
I will say no. Initially, I did not think it was going to be a veteran addition. I felt that if it was going to be anyone, it was going to be through the draft. Now, I saw the videos the week leading up to the draft of Jalen and AJ working out together. I
Yeah.
think it was in California.
Yeah.
And I will say I had no heads up, but that made me think if there's going to be a guy, like you look at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, like one of the reasons it works so well isn't just the fact that you have Joe Burrow, who's a top tier talent, Jamar Chase is
Hmm.
an outstanding wide receiver prospect, but they had that instant chemistry together.
Exactly.
I'm thinking to myself, this is a guy who's a proven playmaker in the league. Someone the Eagles showed a lot of interest in that 2019 draft,
Mhm.
came on a pre-draft visit to Philadelphia, just went earlier in the second round before the Eagles had their pick. Just like you knew the team had interest. It's Jalen's boy. Phil's position that they're trying to upgrade. Like maybe it's possible, but I didn't realize that AJ Brown was that much on the market or the Titans and
Yeah.
him were at such a standstill from a contract standpoint. So I was in what we call the pit at the NovaCare complex. We have like an open office where our department works out of, and this is shortly after Jordan Davis,
Hmm.
is selected. So we're just trying to get all the app, the breaking news emails, social media, website. We're just trying to get all the Jordan Davis news out there. And literally, it's like I look up at the screen, and the NFL Network Eagles have acquired AJ Brown. It was like did not have this story planned at all. Like where do we start? And it's just let's just get it done type deal. So, but I will tell you, my phone, JC, hasn't blown up as much as it did at that moment in quite some time when it came to an Eagles transaction. Like everyone was hitting me up about the move. So, again, you're just a bona fide playmaker who he epitomizes what Nick Sirianni wants in a wide receiver because he plays with that physical toughness on top of everything else, on top of the ball skills and everything else. The speed, the route running. Again, someone who loves the game of football. Is very much into the X's and O's, but he's a guy that's like, if you need those tough yards, you could throw him out to, throw it out to the flat. And I could picture him dragging 2 or 3 defenders with him down the field, getting, converting a 3rd and 5 and the link just going nuts and getting everyone psyched and him getting, sticking the arms out, all flexing and everything and getting the crowd juiced because of that physical ability that he brings. It's going to open things up for Devontae. It's going to help Dallas Goedert, because you think about Dallas Goedert now, Quez Watkins, who is just a speed weapon, him working out of the slot, like that's going to help. Like all these guys are going to be helped out by AJ Brown. And what I like is the fact that AJ Brown came from a run-centric offense in
Yep.
Tennessee where he got his touches, but it's like it's not an offense where it's like, okay, the ball is going to be thrown around the yard 40, 50 times a ball game. This is a team that put the ball through Derrick Henry and, had to go by running back by committee at times last season. But, AJ Brown still found a way to get his touches, but still, that's not a team that was like, okay, you think of the Tennessee Titans, you're thinking the pass offense. Well, the Eagles have the number 1 rushing attack from last season. All the pieces are pretty much back from last season. Obviously, we're looking to see Jalen Hurts take the next step. And I think the Eagles have said, Jalen's our guy. Let's give him every chance to succeed. Let's build the best offense we can around him and, put it on his shoulders and say, Jalen, we want you to succeed. We want you to be the guy. This is the best opportunity. The best case scenario for him is having his boy being a top flight wide receiver, number 1, the guy Smitty, who had the, Eagles rookie receiving record last season, a top flight tight end, an electric running back in the backfield. Oh, we got your whole offensive line, and we've added some more pieces on top of that. You got Sayamalo coming back. Driscoll's coming back. You added Cam Jurgens. Like, let's do this. Let's do this.
Yeah,
Jalen.
and his tight end from Oklahoma,
Calcaterra.
Yeah, Calcaterra. So they
Grant
gave him
Calcaterra.
everything. So my last question for you is this: what is a successful season for Jalen Hurts in order for him to stay, the franchise quarterback? Some people is saying he has to go to playoffs. He has to win a
I
playoff
saw that,
game.
but
Yeah, that's why.
But JC, if he gets to the playoffs and throws 5 touchdown passes, like his performance in the Kansas City game this past season.
Oh, that was great.
300 yards and he had like 3 touchdowns, but it's a shootout and they lose. Are you going to say, "Oh, Jalen Hurts can't be the guy"? Like, no, he lost the game because you want to see. The biggest thing for me is overall from Jalen. This is again the first time that he's had the same offensive coordinator, play caller for consecutive seasons. Does he take growth in the offense? Is his timing faster? Does he have a better grasp of the offense? Does he have better command of it? Is he distributing the ball better to all areas of the field? Is he still utilizing? Look, the legs, the athleticism. That's still going to be part. I hope that's still a part of his game. I don't want to see that taken away from him. That's still going to be a huge asset for him. But the biggest thing to me is just overall, does he better execute the offense? And does he allow Nick Sirianni to do more? Because I think when you look at how the Eagles played early in the season, it was more of a passing offense. I think that's what Nick wants to do.
Yeah.
That's what Nick wants. Ultimately, I think Nick, Howie, they realize sustained success is going to come through the passing game. We'll tailor it to the runs because that was the best thing for this team last season. It was the best thing to get Jalen Hurts on track, the offense on track. You have a great offensive line. Let's roll with that. But I think they want to grow the offense more, see Jalen thrive more as a passer. And if he does that, I think the results will take care of themselves. So, and there's some great quarterbacks who needed 2, 3, 4 playoff appearances before they won a playoff game. I'm not saying there's any kind of like patience level with that to an extent, but again, I think if he is able to grow as a passer, grow in terms of commanding the offense, the defense has the improved talents. To me, it just seems like everything else, the schedule, the way the schedule's set up, I think everything else will take care of itself, JC.
Oh man, look, I agree with everything you just said. I don't believe that he has to win a playoff game. If he takes the steps that you just say, he could read a defense better. He's throwing the wide receivers open. I mean, you see him growing in the system, and he's okay. Well, hey, we got something here, and then next year we could do whatever. But look, thank you very much, man, for taking time out your busy day. I appreciate it. I know you're a very busy guy, especially now, breaking news everywhere. Hey, look, it might be breaking news right now. Who knows? But look, I appreciate you taking the time out. Any last word before I let you go?
No, I think a big thing. It's a fun time for the Eagles. We got the Eagles Autism Challenge taking place this Saturday at Lincoln Financial Field. There is still time to sign up. It's amazing how much you realize that this impacts families all around the world. Yeah, not just the Philadelphia area, but like it's one of those things where before all this emphasis on autism research and awareness, it was kind of like you knew of it, but now it's like, man, like all these great organizations are working to help families. There's so many families that are affected by it. So I'll be bike riding 30 miles. Say a prayer for me, JC. Hopefully I'll make it.
Hey, I believe in you, man. I believe in you.
All to raise money for a phenomenal cause. And of course, training camp's going to be here before we know it. I know everyone says this is the quiet time, but the players are in the building for a couple more weeks. They'll take off, but I'm telling you, JC, I hope we'll be able to see you at some point in the near future. Get you down to an open practice at the stadium or something.
Oh yeah, I'm coming to both open practice and actually all 2 home games. Already got my ticket for the Giants and the Washington football. The Washington Commanders. So I'll definitely be down there.
That's gonna be awesome, JC. You do a great job with this, man. I appreciate being on. Thanks for having me. We'll do it soon. If you want to hook up before training camp, definitely let me know. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Hey, go Birds.
Go Birds.